Come and let's talk, real people, real funny, real deep, passionate, Jesus loving unapologetically, safe but savage.
Hi friends, and welcome to Saved by Savage podcast. Today I have my friend Tia that is joining us. She's going to tell us a little bit about her ministry. And I just want to tell you guys a little bit about Tia from my perspective. I met Tia through my husband. My husband went to a ministry school with her twin brother. And she just kind of randomly added me on Facebook, and we just started talking. I think that we had very similar passions and all of those things. And we started interacting. And we've been friends ever since, and we talk, we've been married for a long time. But Tia's going to tell us a little bit about her ministry first, and then we're going to get right into the topic. So can you tell us what is the name of your ministry?
Our ministry is called Awaken the Masses Ministries. Mm-hmm. We are based in North Carolina, and what we do is I guess we're kind of like church consultants in a way. We go around and we help different ministries with whatever the need might be. We have both helped on worship teams. I do more of the scene, working with administration, and I've worked with children's ministries for a number of years. My husband does more of the music side of ministry and sound and tech, that sort of thing. And we both are pastors, so right now we don't have our own congregation or whatever you would like to call it.
Sure.
That we are over, but in this season, that's what we're doing.
That's awesome. So yeah, Tia's husband is musician extraordinaire over there, and then they just do a bunch of different stuff. Tia is homeschooling her babies right now. And the topic we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about marriage. And the reason why me and her, we've had this conversation before, specifically about single people. I have never seen so many single folks out there ever in my entire life as I have now. And quite honestly, I'm asking the Lord, what is going on? How did we get here? And why is this happening? Because I know that the heart of the Father is for families. He loves people coming together. He loves bringing people together, So me and Tia have had this conversation. Why is it that you think that there's just a lot of singleness right now? But one of the reasons why I want to have Tia on here was me and her have almost been married almost the same amount of time. So I've been married. I'm going to be married 15 years. How long are you going to be married this year?
It's going to be, let's try this for that, 13 years.
Okay. We're right there. When we're in competition. I'm just kidding. No, but we've been there for a little. We've been married quite a bit. And one of the things I was telling one of the girls, the young adult girls that I talked to, I'm like, why are you asking advice from other young adult girls that are not married? That don't even, why aren't you asking the people that have been married a long time how they did it? So Tia, let me ask you, you've been married for a long time. Let's go from the beginning. So let's start from dating, because everything happens in the dating place, right? How did you know that Jacob, which is her husband, that he was the one that God had for you? How did you know? What were the signs, or did you have a list? How did you know that it was him?
I had a list of things, the core things that I knew that I wanted in a guy. He needed to be a Christian. That was just a non-negotiable. I wanted him to be involved in a church family of some sort. Okay. Someone that was kind and thoughtful, that wasn't a person of integrity, because a lot of what we're seeing online nowadays too is that they come off in public one way, but behind closed doors they're a totally different story. So I want someone that had integrity, and someone that was a hard worker and that would be a provider, because you can't just off of love and fuzzy feelings.
Yo,
And
let's talk
those were
about that.
probably, yeah, yeah,
Because I tell to the girls all the time, I'm like, y'all want the romance so bad, but once you get the romance gets out of the romantic part of it gets out of the way, you're the ones that end up being the ones supporting that person because that's all they could give you, you know. So we'll elaborate in a little bit. I'm sorry. So you wanted him to be a non-negotiable. He wanted him to be a Christian. You wanted him to be a provider, a hard worker. What was another thing?
What's the say? Someone integrity and someone that is teachable in the sense that
That's good.
when you know that something's wrong, that they're willing to work on it and work together.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are probably the main. What I think we named 3 or 4 things on the list because I had a list before when I was younger. You know, when you're a teen and
Of course.
young adult, you have this very realistic list of things you want.
Yeah.
Some of it was superficial, and you know, God just kind of had to break me a little bit of all that nonsense and focus on the things that are, you know, more eternal. Which I'm not trying to sound overly spiritual, but you know, sound that's more eternal that will matter. That you know, when the looks and the fuzzy feelings, because you know, some days you don't feel fuzzy and all lovey-dovey with your partner.
Girl.
But you gotta have a foundation that you know that's
Some
solid.
days are like, you know,
right? Because you can't, you know, situational things happen, so you gotta be able to withstand those type of things. So God had to really,
100%.
you know, work on those things. And then you know, we mentioned earlier about you know young women talking to older women that have some experience and some wisdom.
Yep.
And thankfully, I have a wonderful mother that was a well of godly wisdom for me, and then I also knew some other godly women as well that you know were like, hey, you need to think about some things. And you know, another thing too, I wanted to make sure for the young girls is, you know, we have this idea that if you don't ever argue or you don't have a disagreement or something like that, that means you have the perfect relationship. And I totally disagree. Like you want to see what this person, how they react and how they do to like
100%.
arguments or disagreements. You don't want to get into a marriage or even a serious relationship 100%. And be like, one day you're just having a small disagreement and this person blows up and you were together with this person before and you never saw that, so you're completely thrown back by that.
100%.
So it's okay to have healthy, you know, disagreement 100%. And argument in a relationship. That's how you learn to work through.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous to think that you're never gonna argue with someone. And so let's go back to a couple of the points that you talked about. Okay, let's actually debate these points. So number one, you said you want someone that was a believer in Christ and that was a non-negotiable. I'm seeing a pattern in a lot of these girls, and I get it. Like, it feels like there is not a lot of fish in the sea in that regard. They always say that racial wise, there will always be a lot more women than there is men. And because of it, right now, they're like, you know, I don't get the pick of the litter. I don't get to pick whatever. And so they're settling to a degree with someone that looks good, but has no essence. You know what I'm saying? And the very people that are saying, hey, I want someone that is a believer and that's not a non-negotiable, that's becoming negotiable because they think they can flirt to convert. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a scary situation to be in because, you know, relationships are already complex on their own, but when you're in a relationship with someone, how do I want to say this? Someone that's maybe like a butterfly in the sense of their maturity, and then you got someone that's in like a cocoon stage. It might not be the best when it comes to. I'm not saying that everyone is going to be on the same level with their partner throughout the relationship, because I'm sure like there have probably been seasons where you've been more spiritually higher maybe
Sure.
than your spouse, and the opposite. But I think when you're first getting into a relationship with somebody, you kind of do want someone that has the same core
Values.
beliefs when it comes to
Yeah.
Christianity
That
or whatever belief.
people think that they can get married with someone that doesn't have the same belief system as them, and that they're gonna be okay. But the reality is not, because people that are Christian, we raise our kids with biblical standards. And even in regards to marriage, we have biblical standards of marriage. I've seen people literally get married and think, well, the person's gonna eventually, they're gonna grow, they're gonna mature. Here's the thing: if you're already up here, the person's gonna have to come up here to reach you. And then if you're growing, you're still going. So it's almost like they feel like they're gonna have to run after you the majority of the time. As well as, how is that a non-negotiable? You know what I'm saying? Not having a person, I just don't get it. Like, you're a Christian, you follow Christ. And don't get me wrong, I do know that there are specific instances where the Lord he works things out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are people that I know, even in my family, that, there were, one was a believer and one was not a non-believer, and they eventually they got there. I'm not saying those situations cannot happen, but I'm saying, like, if you do not make a standard, how are you gonna measure where you want to be? You know what I mean? In that regard.
You know how you're saying, like, if you're up higher and you're having to pull someone up, the opposite can happen too. I've seen that where that pulls you down, and I've seen people walk away from, their Christian faith because of a spouse. So you really need to be spirit-led
100%.
when it comes to that type of thing.
That's why it says, so there's a lot of different ways to talk about, like, being unequally yoked. Right? Unequally yoked literally means, and I don't know if I've had this conversation with others before, but as you study the Bible, when they talk about equally yoked, what they used to do back in the day is they had a old oxen and a young oxen, and they would put a yoke, which, by the way, I thought yoke, they meant like an egg yolk, and I was so confused. Yeah, because, hey, English is not my first language, okay? So I hear yoke, Y-O-K-E, I think of egg yolk. And so I was thinking, I'm like, why do they put egg yolk on two oxen? That's the weirdest thing. Until I discovered it, I'm like, oh, that's what they meant. Anyway, but they had this wood thing that they would put around their necks, right? That would hold them together. And at the beginning, it was kind of a fight, because the younger bull is going to want to pull away wherever he wants. And the older oxen is already trained and disciplined to do the same thing every day. He has a routine. He has the wisdom. He knows where to go. He knows that if he pulls this way and he pulls the other way, they're going to get hurt. And so when it talks about unequally yoked, that's what they mean. They mean, like, you're supposed to be walking in alignment together. Because if you're not, you are going to struggle. That is like common sense. It's a promise. You're gonna struggle if you are not equally yoked with the person that you are wanting to be with. You know what I mean? You know, you
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, girl.
Right.
What?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No.
I was gonna say too. It's kind of even deeper than just both being Christians, because you got some people. What is your definition of a Christian? Is one thing you need to ask. Because some people think they can be a Christian, like go out drinking and partying and smoking and doing everything they want to do, and they don't have a prayer life. They're not in their word. They're not. They don't have speech that reflects that they're filled with the Holy Spirit. And then you got some people that are doing all the right things, but maybe they don't believe in speaking in tongues, or they don't believe in some other gifts of the, and that is a problem. That can be a big issue for you.
It can. Yeah. Even in that regard, it can be a big issue. Should it be a big issue? No, not necessarily. Just because doctrine doesn't keep us together, but it can split us apart.
Unfortunately, yes.
It literally can. But you're right. That's a good point. Yeah. I've seen it. That's why we're talking about being equally yoked. You need to understand what you're getting into before you get into it with someone, because this is not a game. And if you're going into marriage for it to last, you need to understand that there's things that will completely cause issues and all of those things, you know. But you talked, so that was one thing. So being equally yoked is super important. Like I said, and you also, girls, can you please stop picking guys that you can fix? I call it the HGTV spirit. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
I call, because I'm like, they think that they're gonna go, oh, they're like, oh my god, this house is so much potential, like I'm gonna buy it and I want to fix it and people are gonna see how I fix this house. Men are not projects. They are who they are from the beginning. Okay, well, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that some of them don't pretend to be what they are not, but the reality is, if they don't want to do something, if they're lazy from the beginning, they're gonna be lazy at the end. If they don't have any sort of desire to do anything with their life, they're not gonna. Do people change? Yeah. Can women change them? No. You know what I mean?
If you want to change, like, I mean, you could try to change them, and you might bring in resentment and some other things, but but you can't make anybody do what they don't want to do. And then there are some guys, though, that you can show them some things, and they might be like, okay, maybe they didn't have the same upbringing where they didn't understand, like, or we're still confident to want to be like, hey, I can go after this dream that I have, or how to be motivated. So
yeah, but it's not us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're not fixing them.
No. Nope. You're right. You definitely need to know what you're getting into.
That's why when you talked about the whole having arguments, like, these are conversations that people should be having in the table. What do you believe in? What are your life goals? What do you want to do with your life? Like, these are things. What is your style of raising children? Honestly, that's probably one that I should have had a conversation. Me and him are very different, which is fine. Okay, sometimes you're gonna marry someone that has like a completely opposite way of raising children or all that. You know what I'm saying? That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can become a conflicting issue if you don't have these conversations, you know.
Right. And then money is another one. Because you got some people that don't believe in really spending. They want to pinch every penny they get. And then you have some people that are like, if I got it, I'm spending it.
And usually they marry each other.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's things like that I don't think get discussed a lot. On money aspect, are we keeping our money together? Are we having our separate accounts? And
can I just say, me personally, this is my personal opinion. I think it's so weird when people keep their accounts separate. Me personally, okay? Just because it feels almost like you're preparing for something to happen. And if it does happen, I'm prepared. So it almost feels like you're like, like when someone's about to hit you, you're kind of preparing for the hit. That's what it feels like to me. When people are not wanting to, like, I don't know, that again, this is just my personal opinion. I'm not saying it's like necessarily Bible. I know that there's women that like to do their own thing and they like to stay independent while being in a marriage. But to me, it doesn't make sense, because the Bible says that the two become one flesh, not just in your physical sense, but in the mental state, in your bank account, all of that. So to me, it doesn't make sense for women to try to stay independent from their husbands that you're supposed to depend on,
our society pushes that too, like being a boss babe, independent woman, and things like that. And it's okay, like, if you want to be able to make money and
sure,
and things like that. But I think the point of being in a marriage is to be dependent, on each other, to like help each other, be there for each other.
It's a team.
So,
it's a team.
Effort.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's a big one. And we're gonna touch on the points that you talked about, like security, all that stuff. But I wanted to about being equally yoked, about not being like, hey, him being a Christian, like, it's not a non-negotiable, because I have seen a lot of marriages fail because they have different belief systems, because one's trying to convert the other, and it's almost like a clashing. Oh, you know what I'm saying? So that's really important. And then you said that we talked about money right now. Yeah, that's a huge one. We do need to know that. We need to know about money. Money has broken up more families and marriages that I've ever seen in anything else. Arguments always coming and stemming from that one thing. Money. Money is the root of all evil for a reason. The love of money. I'm sorry. The love of money. Not money itself. We need it. Unfortunately, that's the system of the world, right? It runs through money. But yeah, that's a huge one. And if you do you honestly, if I could do things differently, and in any way possible when it comes to money, I think that I would have clinged onto somebody that already knows how to handle money more, so that I could learn. So I was actually going to school. I was going to college to go for business administration, all that stuff. And I started it, and the Lord said, no, I'm calling you to ministry. And I said, but why? Ministry doesn't make any money at all. And so, but anyway, but in that regard, I think I would have done things a little bit different in regards to like money and stuff like that if I could, because yeah, it could be a source of worry, stress, anger, bitterness, all of that stuff. So yeah, that's a big one, ladies. But anyways, but she did also, you mentioned feeling security, right? Secure. How did Jacob make you feel secure? What do you mean by that?
I think he was a safe space to like be able to vent and just be able. I feel like I could be myself because believe it or not, y'all, I am kind of goofy acting, and I'm sure Jacob would agree to that. But also, I'm like, I'm a deep thinker. Sometimes I think too much, and just being able to confide in him and talk to him about the things that irk me, no matter how big or small they are. And some relationships you have guys that they just don't want to hear all that. They've worked all day. They don't want to be bothered with all that. They just want to come home and decompress, which there's nothing wrong with that. But you gotta. I'm trying to play with my dogs. I'm saying stop it.
Listen, we're doing a podcast and there's kids around. We're gonna do what we gotta do. We're mamas. They're gonna. Mine ran in here earlier with a pancake in her hand, asking me to open a bag. I'm like, Lord have mercy. Okay, so you're saying like he basically created a safe space for you to be able to confide in him, right, emotionally. But even let's talk about even spiritually. You should have security in the person that you're looking into, that they're not gonna hurt. That's why we keep saying the standard has to be the same. The values have to be the same, because I've heard of Christian men and women that have Christian values, but they're okay with cheating. They're like, well, no, if Jesus forgave all my sins, you should forgive me too. And that's their excuse. They twist and manipulate the word. So that's why having the same standards, but like even in the area of security, feeling like someone is gonna cheat on you for the rest of your life, I'd rather not. I'd rather not.
That would be a deal breaker for me.
That would be hell.
Yes.
Like literally, if you cannot trust the person that you're trying to pick to be your husband, and if you constantly have to check where he's at, and if you're constantly having to see who he's talking to, if you constantly have to check their phone, if you're constantly feeling like, why are they talking to women, that's a you problem, but that's also a security problem that you need to deal with. It's not okay. You should be completely and totally in that trust and that secure and the safe place with the person that you want to marry. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I do believe that, there are some cases where you have someone that may have been unfaithful and that they may have repented and they don't want to do it again. They might, but I wouldn't make that a habit of picking people that have histories of repetitive cheating. And also questions you need to ask too, and it might sound crazy to some people, but you need to ask, well, how are your parents' relationship? Like, are they together? Are they still together? What about grandma and grandpa? I mean, that might sound really crazy to some people, but some families have generational things of
Oh,
where
absolutely.
they're sisters or they're whatever the issue may be. So those are questions
Absolutely.
that should come up at some point if
Absolutely.
you're in this person for
And
marriage.
and maybe God is choosing you to break the generational curses. For
Yeah.
us, that was that case. There's divorce on both sides of our family, like several. Most of our family members have been divorced. So the fact that we made it to almost 15 years is a crazy miracle for real. But it came with blood, sweat, tears, and all of that. Because we've had to fight for them. Literally, you have to fight for the marriage. People think that after they get, like, especially the single people, they think that after you get married everything gets fixed. you're gonna
No.
feel you're gonna feel better. Oh, you everything is gonna be roses and rainbows and magical and whimsical. No, this is where the fight actually comes in, because now you have to fight to stay together. Just because you sign a paper doesn't mean that you're done and the enemy's done attacking you. Actually, signing the paper and coming before God and saying, "Hey, I'm coming in covenant with this person," you are a target.
I was about to say it puts a target on your back, if anything, because Satan hates covenant. He hates, and marriage is one of the closest covenants you have in relationship when it comes to God. Satan, Satan, Satan hates it. So if anything, he's gonna come after you for real, for real. So you
Everything.
should know you should know your enemy and his targets and pitfalls for that relationship before and be not offensive, be on the wait, defense or offense? I don't know what I'm trying to say that. You should be ready for him
Well,
and
yeah.
go after
Stand guard.
not
Yeah.
yeah, give him a chance to play on those things. And so that's gonna take, putting pride aside and
Yeah.
just being real with each other, like, hey, if you struggle with this, be like,
Yep.
hey honey, I struggle with this. Keep me accountable by doing this or that and vice versa. Because like we've had things in our relationship that we've had to be like, okay, I struggle with this, whatever that may be, keep me accountable. Or if I'm asking to spend money on certain things or whatever, but no, remind them what the end goal is, what you're wanting to get,
Yeah.
what, the true purpose is. So,
Yeah. And that's
yeah,
good. That's good. I think that's important.
yeah.
If you struggle with something, like me, for example, like um I've struggled with rejection in the past. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever kind of rejection it is, it doesn't matter. Rejection is rejection, and it will always rear its ugly head out in the weirdest times. And so I told them, I'm like, because of that, like, there's certain things that I'm like, from the beginning, I'm like, I struggle with this, now that I feel like the Lord has restored and healed and grown me a lot in that area, but there's still some areas that I'm like, hey, I still don't like when this is done, or when you say something like this, or when you do this, because it makes me feel rejected. And so when you learn to love someone and respect them, you understand their love language, you understand what like presses their buttons. But these are conversations that should be have even prior to the marriage. You know what I'm saying? And then this is not a rated PG-13 and a below podcast. This is for adults. So I'm gonna say it. There's a lot of men out there that have struggled with pornography prior to getting married, and they never say it out loud to their wives. And because of that, afterwards the wife has to find out the bad way that this husband of hers has been struggling, or even vice versa. There's women that struggle with it as well,
Oh, yeah.
and has rewired their brain to think that pornography or something like that is equated to actual love, when it's not. And when they're not getting what they thought they should be getting in both ends, then they want a divorce, because now the marriage is boring. Now the marriage is not fun,
Yeah, and it's sad, but also like if you're a woman, I would say, and let's say you do get in a relationship with a man that is that struggles with that, the worst thing that you could do is kind of like be accusatory to him or be ugly.
Sure.
Because a lot of them, it's, for some men, honestly, it is, well, my dad did this, or, grandpa did this, or,
They
you
think
know
it's
what I'm
normal.
saying? Like, they think it's normal. And then also in today's society, I mean, sex sells. It's everywhere.
100%.
Even like cartoons, you see certain things. And like, I was talking to someone else about this. I was like, why do they need romantic relationships in kid shows?
Absolutely.
Why is that even a thing?
My kids still think is sus is what they call it. That's sus.
Right.
I'm like, good. Keep saying that. Good.
But the first example that your kids should see of a healthy relationship, it should be from mom and dad, not what they're getting on TV.
100%.
You know?
100%.
So,
And like one thing is like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, my husband and I, we never fight in front of the kids. I don't fight in front of the kids, but I do have strong conversations with my husband in front of the kids sometimes. First of all, because I probably reacted right then and there most of the time, but also because I want the kids to understand this is what real marriage looks like. It's about conflict resolution, not about, let's just hide and yell at each other after everybody's going to sleep, because they're going to notice anyway. Kids understand and they feel the atmosphere of the house. They feel the tension. And so, but no, you're right. I think that we are to be the example what it actually looks like to be in a marriage and a relationship. But in your singleness, I would say this, and we talked about this, there should be trust, there should be security, right? There should be non-negotiables. You are to be a man of God. How can you be led by someone that is not a man of God when you want a man of God? That doesn't make any sense to me. So you're gonna go to the club to go look for a man of God. Got it.
Make sense.
Sometimes I'm like, help me, Jesus. How does this? That doesn't make any sense at all. And I've seen that. There's girls literally that are like, they're giving up. They're giving up on finding men of God in church, so they leave. But let's talk about that. Why is it that they're not finding the men of God? What do you think, Tia? Why do you think women are not finding men of God? And I'm going to say women more because, like I said, ratios, usually it's more women than men, right? Why do you think women, we're going to go to the women first. Why do you think they're not finding men of God right now?
I know for some of my friends that are Christians that are single, a big issue for them is sex. There are a lot of men that are Christian, but they don't see an issue with trying the car out before they.
So you're not a Christian.
Exactly.
You're not. You cannot live in sexual immorality and call yourself a Christian. You can't.
Well, unfortunately, the church has done a kind of horrible job in showing that to our young people too, because we have ministers and people that are in church, and what they're showing on Sunday is not how they're living their lives throughout the week, or their morals and values are not reflecting what we're telling them on Sundays is in the Bible. And so we do have unfortunately a generation of young men coming up that have just not had good examples of that. And so they think it's, okay to sleep around as long as they're in a committed relationship and things of that nature.
That doesn't make... Here's the thing. It doesn't make sense to me. Because I have a daughter now. I have a daughter and a son, so both of them are in the equal plane in that regard. And you have your two daughters and your son. But here's the thing: it doesn't make sense to me that someone would want to marry my daughter, but then defile her first, and try her out like we're in the ice cream store and try all the flavors of ice cream before you actually pick one. And then you're like, oh, then now I'm in a committed relationship. If you were not faithful to yourself and to the people before, what makes me think that you're going to be faithful to her now? And I'm not saying people don't change, but real repentance brings real true transformation. Happens from the mind to the heart to the spirit. And it's shown in your actions. So no, I hear you, because I've heard other girls tell me the same things. They're like, the dating pool right now, it's atrocious. People are putting verses of the Bible saying they're men and women of God. The men are asking like, well, what do you think about sex? Well, if sex is not off the table, then I'm off the table. I'm like, then get off the table, homie, for real. You know. And then women saying, oh, she's clothed in righteousness and blah blah blah, and then turning around showing everybody the behind, or their chest is popping out of their top.
Yes. Or taking pictures that are
inappropriate.
That's good, inappropriate, and it's just like I don't understand it. Like what's going on in people's minds, like to think that that's
it's crazy.
Okay,
it's immorality.
It is.
It's men trying to shape their own reality. Here's the thing, babies. I'm gonna tell you, all these babies that are watching this. I'm just gonna do it. Say it like a mama. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter what reality you shape. Okay, you can say to yourself that it's not a sin. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you will be judged according to what God says, not what you think. Because your truth doesn't mean it's the truth. And there would be no truth if there was no standard.
Exactly.
So you're telling me everybody has their own truth. And that's the truth. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I would say if everybody has their own truth, then it's not really truth, because it's like subjective to your own feelings and what you think is right and wrong. So
and your life, your lived the life. So it's not, doesn't mean it's true, but it doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. Why are all these people looking for husbands and wives in places where men of God and women of God, where they're not at? Like, it doesn't make sense. Another thing that I would say, me personally, I think that this generation is so aesthetic in nature. And by that, I mean they are so into looks. They're not looking any further than that. Do you know what I mean?
I do. That was an issue for me. Like, I know when I was growing up that he had to be a certain height. He had to have certain color eyes, hair. He had to drive a certain car, which car thing never really was an issue for me. But
I mean,
you didn't want him to be in the hoopty or nothing. But
I was in my Fast and my Furious era. Okay, I wanted one of them Toyota racing cars. No, I'm just kidding. No, it wasn't. I liked old cars. Like I want a 70 Chevelle. So anyway, I'm weirdo. But I get what you're saying. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and like for me, I know for many years that was an issue, and then God just one of those like, well, I know better than you, so just let me pick out who, because so far what I had thought would work and look good did not work out, so I had to really like let go of the reins a little bit. And it's not saying that God won't give you somebody that you're attracted to, but sometimes attraction
gross.
It's just that it doesn't mean there's substance to it. So you have to be willing to put the list aside a little bit on things that don't really matter in the whole equation of marriage.
The grand scheme of all. And the thing is, like, we grew up in purity culture, right? In purity culture, it did a good job in some areas, but in some areas it created some trouble. And I think in the time that we grew up, like, they're like, make a list. And I think making a list is a good thing, but it could also be a hindrance to you seeing beyond your list.
Right.
Because like, I mean, when we're young, we're literally we fall in love with what we see, not what we actually are supposed to be looking at. Like you said, the substance, the depth. Because at the end of the day, the Bible says the beauty is fleeting, which is kind of sad. I look at myself sometimes and I'm like, I'm getting old. I have gray hair and it's fleeting. It's fleeting, Jesus. So hard. But it's, what I'm saying? But it says the beauty is fleeting. And at the end of the day, you're going to marry someone that you have to be friends with. someone that doesn't bore you to death, because you're gonna be,
Right.
you know what I mean? You're gonna be married with a
Right. And that, the thing too with that within marriage is that you still have to. You might not be able to pursue your spouse when it comes to dating things like you did before the kids came.
Sure.
But even within marriage, you gotta make an effort to still make each other feel like you're special, and
Yeah.
things like that, because
Just bring me tacos.
people will not always be around. Like, they're gonna move out one day and
Yeah.
have their own lives, and then it's you and your husband, and you put so much
That's
time
right.
and effort into other things that you don't know who you both are anymore.
100%. 100%. So I would say this to all the young people that are looking for someone. Number one, if you want a man of God and a woman of God, let that not be let it be a non-negotiable. And the reason, unless the Lord is speaking to you and telling you otherwise, like I said, there are sometimes where the Lord is like, that's the person you're to marry, and you're like, well, Lord, they don't really know the Lord. But if they're open, that's a different story, because when they're open, they will grow. And sometimes the Lord will take someone through a process of acceleration that they will go from 1 to 10 like that, and they will become equally yoked, because it's something that the Lord has brought together. But the problem that I'm seeing a lot too is that they refuse to ask God whether that person is the one or not. And that's how I know that they're not the one, because people that know.
Yep. Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Like, it's not weird. I definitely think it's a God thing, but like, I've had people that I know that get in relationships with people,
Yeah.
and I get to meet them, and automatically the Lord's like, no, that's not it. And it kind of makes it awkward a little bit, because like, oh, do you like so and so? I'm like,
It's part of my
nice.
gifting too. It's the weirdest gift I've ever received in my entire life.
It really is. I'm like, but you need to pray about it and see if
I just know.
that's, because I mean, I've literally been to church, and like, a young lady will bring in a new guy, whatever, and I'm like, the Holy Spirit's like, mm-mm. But other people, yeah, well, he's this and that and the other, and I'm like,
it's part of the gift of discernment, right? But I've asked the Lord, I'm like, first of all, I do not like getting into people's business. I like being by myself. I do not care about your business. So I'm like, is this why you gave it to me? Because I feel like you're pushing me into someone else's business, and I don't like that. I've never wanted to play Cupid, and I never wanted to be like, hey, I feel like the Lord's saying no. Like, why? Why would I want this gift? I know it sounds really bad, and it sounds like I'm being ungrateful. And I'm not. I promise you, like, I'm not being ungrateful, Jesus, but it is literally one of the weirdest gifts that you have given me. I always know when it's going to end bad. And I'm going to say I've been wrong one time. And maybe that was because I was in my flesh at that point period. But I've recognized since then, But one time, out of all the times, I've been wrong one time. And every single time, I'm like, they're going to get a divorce. This ain't gonna end well. Like, I don't say it out loud. A lot of times I don't say it out loud. You know what I'm saying? So people are like, oh, you're cursing them. No. I don't even say it out loud. I just know. Or I write it down and I'm like, or if they ask, I'm like, straight up, no. The Lord's saying no. You're gonna ask me, I'm gonna tell you what the Lord's saying. I'm not gonna tell you what, because in my flesh, I don't care who you with. It ain't gonna affect me.
Exactly. Yeah, and I've seen it opposite too. Like, someone is going through a rough patch and they're considering divorce, and the Lord will be like, no, they're not supposed to divorce. And so I'll just begin to I'll intercede for them or whatever, because I've seen a lot of people be like, well, hey, y'all need to just go ahead and split up or whatever. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm hearing the Lord say. Like, you need to push through and pray that whatever you need to do to get through.
100%.
But that's definitely not something I've ever asked for or wanted. And I feel like that kind of shows, I know, like, at least when I look at you and stuff, like, someone that's heart is pure and has good intentions, like, we don't usually ask for those type of gifts or things like that. We would be completely happy with it just being us and Jesus for the rest of our life.
I'm good at I'm good at my house minding my own business.
Exactly right.
Like even gossip, like I'm not gonna lie to you, in the Spanish community I feel like gossip is so natural and so normalized. But when I got married, my husband is like, that's gossip. And I'm like, no, it's not gossip. But then when I realized that it was gossip because it was normalized to me, I'm like, now I avoid it like the plague, because I'm like, I don't want to be in it, because it causes issues and it causes problems that I do not need. I legitimately, I am to myself in my, you know what I do? I clean, I'm with my family, I do what I gotta do, and that's it. I'm on my own business. But then the Lord is like, you're gonna have to tell someone this. I'm like, why? I'm gonna get in trouble. Okay, fine. But no, yeah, I get what you're saying. But even in regards to relationships, like I said, I always know, because people that walk in the spirit of discernment, you just know. And like I said, one of the signs for me that two people don't belong together is when I ask them, did you ask the Lord whether or not you're supposed to be in this relationship? And number one, they say, well, no, or they refuse to do it immediately. I already know it's a no. It's a no, and they know it's a no. That's a no, because listen, it's like a child that goes up to their parents. So Brielle, usually they have this thing, her dad, they have this thing where she asks behind mama's back if she can have a cinnamon roll, like almost yeah, that's her thing with her dad. And I know she's doing it. Then I'm like, fine, I'm gonna let them have it. But she goes up to him and she knows he's gonna say yes. So she walks over really sneaky and she's like, Daddy, can I have a cinnamon roll? And here comes Daddy to the kitchen and gets her a cinnamon roll, because she always knows when he's gonna say yes and when he's gonna say no. And she would not ask him if he was gonna say no, because then mom knows Dad's gonna say no, and there's an agreement in the no's. So this is the same thing when you're single or when you're trying to get into a relationship, which could be a completely different podcast. But if you are refusing to ask God whether this person is the one for you, you've already said no. You already know in your heart it's a no. Because when you know the Father says yes, that you know in your heart of hearts that God is going to say yes, you're definitely going to go up to him so he can confirm it to you. And then the joy of the Lord will be bursting, you know?
That's good. That's good. And it's true. Because, like, even, like, with adults, like, we know we're not going to do something if we know our answer is going to be no, or if it's going to cause extra steps for us to do or whatever. So, yeah, that was good.
Well, thank you, Tia, so much for all your insight. I know, like, we could literally talk about this the whole entire time, but we went a little bit over this time. Hopefully this was a little bit of information and a little bit of insight to some of these young girls. And we know it's a completely different, dating world than it was when we were their age. And I get that, but the standards are the same. And we should continue to desire what God desires for us. So if you're out there and if you are not married, but you desire to be married, I would really encourage you, number one, fast, pray, and tune your ear to what the Lord desires for you. A lot of you are looking at outward things, but you're not looking deeper into what God wants for you. What if the person that God wants for you doesn't look like what you think they should look like? But in the inside, they're completely everything you've ever wanted, needed, and everything you didn't even know you wanted. Like, there's a lot of things in my husband that I'm like, I didn't even know I wanted this, or I needed this, and I needed it. The Lord knew. But thank you so much, Tia. Go check out her ministry, her husband. They have all these things that they do for the churches and things like that. So I think it's really, really awesome. But thank you, Tia, so much for joining me. We could definitely do another part of this. We could do a whole marriage part. No, we talked about the single part. Let's talk about the marriage part. And we could talk about the whole sex part. Yeah. Tia's always over here trying to eat her husband, which is crazy. What do you call him? Corn?
I call him country snack. Yes.
A country snack. Not gonna lie, when I think of country snacks, I think of boiled peanuts.
I can't stand boiled peanuts.
Really?
with no.
I can't have peanuts anymore, but they used to be my Mexican boiled peanuts were like my favorite thing with chile, limon, and anyway, that was gross. Everybody's gonna hear in a podcast me go anyway. But anyway, thank you so much, Tia. We will definitely have Tia another time. And if you have any questions, if you have any comments on this, we would love to hear what you have to say. If you're in that boat right now and you're like, hey, this is why not, let us know in the comments. And thank you for tuning in with us. We will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.